Hello, 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 hello. That's this one. Hello, hello.
Test one, two. Hey, there we go. Maybe. Welcome everyone to DevOps Des Moines tonight. And how many people are here for the first time? 1, 2, 3. All right. Welcome. We're just going to cover a couple basics about where we're at, and then get going with the lightning talks tonight. With 3 lightning talks. Go ahead. You need Wi-Fi? It's there. Restrooms are through there, where the sign says restrooms. So up there and up to the first floor or all the way up to the top floor. Poppin' pizza, please take some. And if there's some pizza left over at the end, please take some. Elevator makes some noises over there. Just ignore it. It comes on randomly. So we're at DevOps Des Moines. It's a local volunteer group. We try to cover DevOps type topics, and hopefully you're here to learn about DevOps and all the problems and issues. And I could hear a couple sharing shop stories like for a half an hour before this, what people were dealing with. So we meet monthly, mostly in person. You can, if you can't make it in person, we do stream on Twitch, so you can participate remotely. Our objectives are to help learn and teach and share things in this space, and then network with other people who happen to be doing some of the same kind of thing you might be doing in your day job. Like I said, it's a volunteer-run organization. Volunteers are Craig. Craig's giving a presentation tonight. Jonathan Tessman's running the AV. DJ Jonathan back there running the... and then Matt Vincent, who is not here. Minh Nguyen's giving a presentation. And myself, John Lengling. Social media, thanks to Molly and Haley, they do the pizzas and taking care of the social media, making sure we get the right date on the invites and all that kind of stuff. There's some places you can contact us. And then, can I speak? This is a pretty obvious question, but yeah, can you speak at DevOps Des Moines? Yes, we're always looking for people. You know, it's a good way to practice communication skills and stuff, which is beneficial in your job. You can talk for 15 minutes, like tonight's a short lightning talk, so there's about 15 minutes. Sometimes we have 30 minutes, sometimes 60 minutes. We'd like to try to do a hands-on workshop. Doesn't really have to be DevOps specific. We've had in the past some presentations on like AI. Anyway, message us on DevOps Des Moines, see one of the volunteers afterwards if you're interested in speaking. And also, Sessionize is another website you can go and fill out your ideas for a presentation you'd like to do. Is that the last one? Also, in front of you on the desk is a survey. We like to get feedback. So we'd like to get your feedback on how the presentation was today. Don't fill that out until afterwards. But if you have suggestions for future topics, please add them, and any way that we can improve the content and stuff. So that's it. Who is up first? Minh Nguyen. You got your own little fuzzy.
Yeah, I got my own. Can you guys hear me? Is it on? Cool. All right. Cool. Hello, everyone. Welcome to DevOpsDSM. My name is Minh Nguyen. I'm a cloud engineer at Athene currently. My presentation today is on CDK Toolkit Library. A little bit more. Can you turn it up low, Jonathan? I don't speak very loud, so. So CDK is, if you don't know, it's a AWS Cloud Development Kit. It enables you guys as developers to define cloud infrastructure as code. Supports languages like Python, TypeScript, C#, I think Go as well. It's open source toolkit from Amazon to help us define AWS cloud infrastructure. Typically within a CDK app, you would use the CDK CLI to synthesize, deploy, destroy your stack. And just recently, they released a new feature within the toolkit so that you can programmatically run those commands using code. So previously, you have to use CDK CLI to run your synth and deploy and things like that. This new feature called CDK Toolkit Library enable you to write code to run CDK deploy and things like that. Currently, it's still in developer preview, so it's still unstable, not quite stable yet, still 0.1.7, and right now it's only available in TypeScript. Hopefully in the future they'll have support for other programming languages if you're in a Python shop or a Go shop and whatnot. So there are probably multiple use cases for this particular toolkit. One of those that I'll demonstrate today is the ability to be able to run integration tests, as part of your before or your setup and tear down. You would deploy your CDK app, run your tests, and then tear it down within code, right? I'm going to be using Jest from TypeScript to run my test. That's kind of it at the high level. Let me see if there's anything I want to touch on. So this is kind of an example of that. You do CDK.deploy instead of your normal CLI CDK deploy. I think one of the things that I noticed was missing is the ability to bootstrap. I think in this particular documentation, it does say that you can use the toolkit library to implement actions such as bootstrapping, but they don't quite have it implemented yet. So I think that was one of the things that I wanted to see is, can I bootstrap an account using this toolkit? But that wasn't available. So currently you would have to still use the CDK CLI to bootstrap your account prior to using CDK to deploy. I'll go over to the code. Here I just have a simple, CDK app that's deploying to my personal account. Oh, yeah, sorry. Quality's not very good, huh? It's kind of blurry. Yep, cool. So here I just have a simple CDK app deploying to my personal account. Nothing too crazy. And that stacks just has a bucket. My first bucket and a stack output with the bucket name. Pretty straightforward. And so as part of the test, I would instantiate the toolkit, and then use the formal assembly builder method from CDK to create the assembly CX. I think that's what it stands for. It's cloud assembly source is the type. And then my setup is to just run CDK deploy, my teardown, CDK destroy, and my super simple test is to check to see if that bucket is created. And I'll run this. I'm going to comment out the after all first for now so we can see that it's created. Oh. So we can see now that it's deploying, and we can go over to my account here. Let me make this larger as well. You can see that we're deploying my CDK app in progress. Might take a minute or two. And feel free to ask any questions if you have them. Okay, it failed. SSO session, why is it expiring so soon? I probably should have made sure that my profile is logged in and stuff. So it's created, but let's run it again. It should be a no op right now because it's already deployed. Something's off because it works when I was at home. So the presentation god is not happy right now. Both AWS profile and the
I think in the firm I have seen Min make an AWS stuff
AWS
bucket
security for the
before.
win.
All right. Profile dev. So we'll troubleshoot real time here. I did update. I did run npm update prior to this, so maybe that's why. It passed the bucket passed, so but something else is not happy. Either way, I'll chalk that up to the toolkit not being stable yet, but my test passed. That's all that matters. And then now let's uncomment this, run it again, and hopefully it deletes. We see where it's destroying. Go back to the console. Delete in progress. So yeah, the idea here is you can use it to, within your CI/CD pipeline for your integration tests or end-to-end tests, where you can spin up your CDK stacks, run your integration tests, and tear it down within the pipeline. Yep, now it's gone. So that's kind of the gist of it. Any questions?
Is the
No, this is just classic Jest stuff, and I'm using the AWS SDK client to call to get my bucket name from the stack output here, and then the SDK client to see if it exists. Now, what would be nicer is if there's a way for the toolkit library to give me the outputs when after deployed, instead of me having to use CloudFormation client and query for the outputs. But maybe that's an enhancement. Um, um, the reason how I came across this particular library is several years ago when I was working within the CDK world. Um, I was looking for the same thing. I was like, is there a way to programmatically run CDK commands? And at that time, it wasn't available, but there was a GitHub feature request for this particular feature back in 2018. And just a couple months ago, so I subscribed to that thread, and just a couple months ago, I got a notification saying, hey, we finally implemented this. I'm like, whoa, after like 7 years, they finally, decided to implement it. So I was kind of happy to see that, and figured, something worth sharing with you guys because I was kind of excited to see it. So Andrew. Mm-hmm. I think you can probably still achieve the same goal previously without this, but you have to interact with the actual CDK CLI, right? Maybe within your pipeline, you have to run the CDK deploy script and then run your npm test and then destroying it in 3 separate steps. For this particular use case, it might provide you with, all-in-one type of thing. You can do all of that within Jest or your test suite. I'm sure there are other use cases as well outside of integration tests that, maybe you can, as part of your, if you have a centralized DevOps team that might want to build processes around deploying CDK apps, then you might use this library for that. So. Right now, from my research, I think it's just TypeScript. CDK itself support, other languages, but I think this particular feature, the toolkit library, only support TypeScript right now. I would have done this in Python because I'm more well-versed in Python, but it wasn't available. So hopefully it'll be available in the future, because I know CDK itself is natively TypeScript, and they just do the whole JSONata to transpile to other languages. I'm not sure why they didn't do it with this. I don't know. Maybe it's already out there. I'm not sure. What's up, Kyle?
With the companies that you've worked with, have they been interested to adopt CDK? Have there been objections, interest, that kind of thing?
My first experience with CDK was at Principal. I think the Principal itself support using CDK. Where I'm at now, CDK hasn't really been a topic. We're more focused on SAM CLI and writing CloudFormation, raw CloudFormation using SAM CLI. So yeah, that topic hasn't come up in terms of like, the adoption of CDK and things like that. But I like CDK, so I would vote for that. But I think it can be a learning curve as well, because it's not the most. If you're coming from a raw CloudFormation, it might feels weird trying to write code to deploy IAC, but I like it. So, anything else? If not, I'll hand it over to Kyle. Thank you.
Test. It's good? Okay. Try to share into the meeting here. Okay, we got something going on here. All right. So I am Kyle Wagner. I'm a software consultant here at Source Allies. That's a professional overview. And yesterday I discovered that I am not a good candidate for LASIK surgery. So that's a personal anecdote. Had my eyes dilated and went and got some info from the doctor. So I'm going to be talking about JSONata, which is a query language for JSON. So it's a way to traverse or manipulate JSON. So that's what we're going to be talking about. What is JSON? It's fairly commonly used, popular way to transmit data over a network. So JSON is JavaScript, JavaScript object notation, or a way to represent data that is similar to JavaScript objects. So what it looks like is something like this. At a top level, you have a brace, and then you have a bunch of key value pairs. You bet. Thanks for bringing that up. Better?
A little more. Oh, yeah, better. Thanks.
Okay. Top level brace, a bunch of key value pairs. So JavaScript objects can be more complex than JSON. There are some restrictions, but typically what you're seeing with JSON is a set of keys and then a value, which is going to be a more primitive type, like a string, a number, a Boolean. Supports nulls, does not support some other things like NaN, or there's some other non-supported types. But importantly, it does support arrays or lists, and then like nested objects. So. Yeah, so like I mentioned, supports Booleans, does not support undefined NaN, infinity, and you can't use like date, set, map types that are supported within JavaScript. So then how do you use JSON? And commonly, I would say a popular way to work with it is called JSON path. This is pretty widely available. If you've worked with JSON at all, I'm sure you've seen this type of thing. I'll try to zoom in here again. So in this case, $ represents the top level object, and then you can use dot or bracket notation to traverse the object to get to the value that you want. And this is very commonly used to get values out of JSON, I would say. There are more capabilities of JSON path. They're a little more edge case, not used as commonly. But it does support some additional capabilities with these types of operators. You can do a slice of an array, for example. And then it does have some functions where you can, at the end of a JSON path expression, you can do things like summing or averaging. I haven't really seen those in practice myself, at least not very commonly, but it is an option. I'll try to keep zooming in here just to remind me if it is unreadable. So let's see, I think there's an example down here at the bottom. Yeah, so with this given JSON string, then here are some JSON path expressions and what you would get out of it. So there are a bunch of these kind of tools out there where you can put in some JSON and get a value out with a given expression. So in this case, we are going to the phone numbers key, which is an array, and then we're doing a sub-select of that, which ends up being just one of these. And then we're getting specifically the type off of that. So in this case, we're getting back the string iPhone in an array. If we did 2 instead of 1, that's going to be the entirety of the array. So then we get both iPhone and home, for example. So I'm going to grab this just to demonstrate, keep us on the same page, and because it's kind of fun. So I'll put this JSON object from the GitHub repo that represents JSON path source code, and take a look at some of these expressions just to make sure we kind of understand what is capable here. So in this case, returns a list for the authors for all books. So wildcarding all books here instead of doing like a substring type thing like that. Where here we would just be grabbing the first 2 indexes from the array. And let's do one more of these just to kind of demonstrate some of the capabilities of JSON path. And given that we're talking about JSONata, we will get to that, of course. But this is doing, let's see, not even sure, all books in the store cheaper than 10. So we're able to do a nice little filter here and get back, it looks like the full object filtered down with price under 10. So definitely some cool capabilities there. I did notice, I don't think I've used this before in practice, but there's support on SQL Server and possibly other database engines for using JSON path, which I think is pretty interesting. So like if you have a field in a database that is a string of JSON, you could then parse out specific parts of that on the fly. I'm a minimum viable DBA myself, so I wasn't as familiar with this, but it makes sense, and these capabilities look pretty cool to me, like definitely some use cases, because one thing you will commonly see, that I've seen anyway, is having like a field that is specific for putting in a large JSON string to later be retrieved, so you don't have to have that flattened out super wide in a database. All right, so getting back on the topic at hand, you know, I mentioned JSON paths, so we can kind of compare and contrast it a bit with JSONata. So as I said, JSONata is a query string, or a query language for JSON. And it has some additional capabilities. The syntax is a little different. It's similar though, and I think relatively intuitive. But it also has some expanded capabilities, some things that it can do in addition to JSON path. And probably the best way to demonstrate this is with another kind of exerciser. And the default query that they put in here is using a sum function, which is something you can do in JSON path. But something you can't do is this here, which is they're using, at least I'm pretty sure you can't. You can't, using a multiplication operator and multiplying two values directly from the JSON on the fly in a single expression. So this is, you know, what this JSON object represents is orders. So there's different options here you can go through. This is the invoice one. And so there's a list of products for order 1 and order 2. Yeah, there's 2 orders in here. Each one has a list of products. So then they have a quantity and a price involved. And then what this does is goes through and for all of the products multiplies price times quantity to get, you know, like a total value, and then sums all of those together to get, for this given set of data, you know, 336 and 36 cents. So let's take a quick flip on the documentation. So I think what's interesting here is there's a pretty wide array of available functions that you can use on with JSONata. So it goes beyond just the few that we saw with JSON path. So like for example, you know, calling length, substring, yeah, trim pad contains, let's look at, yeah, so like for array functions, you know, being able to append and sort, a lot of the common things that you would see in a programming language like JavaScript, some of the methods that exist, you're not going to have everything available in JSONata, but it's definitely an expanded capability. Okay, so let's look at a few cases where we can see this in action. So I have a couple of examples in Node, and then 2 examples in AWS step functions, which is really the motivator for why I think this is especially cool. So this is just a small Node project, has the JSONata package, and pull that up quick. So, you know, this has a quick start example, which shows how for a data that looks like this, you can pass an expression and then, you know, have that evaluated. So there's a set of methods that are available for JSONata. Evaluate is going to be one of those big ones that is used a lot. I'm not sure the full scope of what else is available, but that's definitely one of the big ones. All right, let's get this zoomed in. So this is the quick start example, just in my editor. And So what this does is just a sum on each of the individual values. So it's going to go through and grab the value key on each of these objects and then sum together the value that it gets back when it calls that value key. So 20 and 4, 24. Okay, so that's just the quick start. And we can see it in action. So this expression is looking for items of value greater than 10 and then doing a sum. So we can see this is probably something that we could do in JSON path, a little different syntax with this kind of thing. And we also know that there's a lot more methods that are available to us, so this is just another demonstration. So we have 3 items, shooting star, Comet 260, Firebolt. Anybody know where those come from? Sound familiar? Oh shoot, running on time? Okay.
Wait, you're not gonna tell us? I was just gonna say.
Well, I got thrown off because apparently I'm running short on time, so I have to go through this. But so sum of values greater than 10, 35, so makes sense. Let's see, so hint, let's go with peeves. Trying to think of a privet drive. Dumbledore? There are names of brooms from Harry Potter. I was trying to think of a hint that wouldn't be completely giving it away. Okay, so here's another example. We'll pick up the pace a little bit. I've been a little long-winded, I guess. So this, in this one, our expression is doing some transformation of the data. So our data looks like we have a first name, a last name, and an age. So we're going to concatenate together the first and last name and have that be its own separate object key. And then we're going to have an average age, which is another key on that. So if we run that node, oops, wrong one. And that was a typo. Oh, yeah, sorry. Thank you. There we go. So we can see that we transform this data into the form a list of full names and then the average age. Eddie Felson, Beth Harmon, George Hegerman. There's also a quiz to see if you can guess what those are from, but I'll let you marinate on that for a moment. Okay, the last thing I want to show is how this works. Is it okay if I go on for another few minutes, or how are we doing for time? Okay, sounds good. So in AWS step functions, there's a state that is called a choice. So in this case, we pass data in, and this statement has, or this state has a condition set on it that will allow it to branch one way or the other. And starting last year, AWS started supporting JSONata as a query capability built right into AWS step function definitions. So if we look here, let's look at the input that was passed in here. So this is the same set of items that was in the JSONata exerciser that we looked at. And I just used, let's see. So this is grabbing the just price times quantity, summing it up and seeing for over 300, and then using that branch to say if it's over 300, then we will go for like a VIP treatment. So if you had orders coming in, like free shipping or something, and if it was under that, it goes to, say, normal treatment. So given the JSON that was passed to this given state, you can then branch based on a condition with JSONata. And given the expanded capabilities of JSONata over JSON path, we can see that you can actually build a lot more logic into your step function that way and not have to maybe develop a separate Lambda function to do some of that manipulation. So I'll leave it there. Any quick questions before I pass it off to the last presenter? Yeah, Landon?
When did this get added to support in AWS, did you say?
I think it was November last year. So prior to this, in choice states, you had to use that JSON path. And so yeah, I believe it was November. All right, I will stop sharing. If you do have any questions about how that works in practice, I mean, if I failed to cover it well, just grab me towards the end of the session. All right, thank you.
Once? Oh, it looks on. Okay, I need to share here someplace. I was just watching it on the... There we go. All right. Now we're rolling. All right, a little bit about myself. I'm usually pretty quiet about these kind of things, but I've been doing this for a really long time. So my slides did not come up in Safari, so I had to go to Firefox. I went to NDSU for computer science, and I learned all about computer networks. I was the one guy that was like young Sheldon on the network. I screwed with everything. And my advisor figured that out, and he got me a job over at the Concordia College running the campus network there. After that, I built an ISP, one of the first ones back when there was modems, way before DOCSIS was around. I worked with all kinds of networks, service providers, large enterprises, and my hacked home network. I did network automation before there was even the word network automation. I've used Perl, Go, and Python primarily for all those kind of things. I've always continued my self-paced learning. Pluralsight was awesome. The guy that interviewed me at Cisco Systems, I swore I knew the guy, and he was the guy that did the videos on Ansible on Pluralsight. I'm regular at all these users groups are following along with the topic of the web geeks or whatever they're doing. I love to ride bicycle, and plants are great. So if you ever want to start talking about something besides computers, we can talk about plants for a long time. I used the internet before there was web browsers, and I've gotten screwed so many times on bookmarks being in the wrong place at the wrong time. So I start at a company, and I start a web page that collects bookmarks. And here is a HTML page. So I just started at this company, and they said, hey, here's your email server. Here's your search engine for the whole company search engine, and here's your payroll. So I would go and put that in that HTML file. And then I would look at it, and it's simple like that. And that's how I kept all my bookmarks. And the one at Cisco Systems now has hundreds of bookmarks in it. There's JavaScript to make tables and all sorts of stuff in there. My one at home has like 110. They're all in YAML, so it puts it in different cards like that. So it's evolved a lot. It's strange, the person that hired me at the cable company, he did his bookmarks the same way because he had the same thing, and his birthday is like 2 or 3 days after mine, so we're almost exactly the same age. Went through the same type of thing. So let's go back to the slides here. They are in Firefox because that would not load. But it's typical for a job. When you start a job, the first day they give you the email and password. You set your password, figure out how to reset your password. Then they give you the HR links, all the training, and figure out how to do the payroll and the PTO and so on. And all those kind of bookmarks would go inside of that HTML file. So as time goes on, you end up with more. Like you have different projects and get different repos and different groups. You end up with a whole bunch of these different tables and different lists of things. And then you end up with file shares. This is just kind of an overview of what I see at my Cisco links that I've kept track of. So I showed you, this is how it loads in Firefox. And then in Safari on the same machine, I can go and open a file here. And I've already done this to practice. And here's my bookmarks that are in the same file. So I never have to worry about exporting it. I don't care who or what company, Safari, Firefox, Microsoft, whoever. I got my stuff saved in HTML, which is nice. So that is me with bookmarks. And I have 2 subjects. And I can remember the other one, but. Okay, so there's the no bookmarks. So at Cisco, you can take a bunch of classes, and we get an email every couple weeks that says, hey, these are the upcoming classes. And there was a AI lab on your MacBook. It's like, no kidding. Oh no, Bill, it's down here. It says build your own AI lab. That's what I saw. And I had a MacBook, so I saw Ollama runs on a MacBook. So I took that course, and within an hour and a half, I got a whole, it was a literally fire hose of information. And follow Omar, he's from Cisco, and he's the one that did the class. So maybe that's why they highlighted it on that email. So Ollama is a program that runs LLMs on your local system. I'm in the downloads, but if you just go to the page, it has a cute logo. You can see it in the upper right corner of my screen here. And it's smart, it knows that I'm on a Mac. It says, you want to download from macOS? Sure. And I've done this before, and there's no laptops here. So you can download this, but that's one of the slides I had on here that install Ollama. And then if all of us were doing this, this would break the network here. There'd be no way the radio could keep up with all these files. So I have downloaded and installed Ollama on my local machine here. Is this big enough? Oh, and you notice I don't use VS Code. So Ollama here is the binary, the command line binary that gets installed when you download and install that Ollama. And it's one of those where it downloads it to the Mac and you copy it over to the applications directory, and then it asks, hey, can I do this? The operating system prompts you for that. So then Ollama is a command line interface a lot like Docker, where you can do a list of all the things you've done. And earlier today, you can see 11 hours ago, I did a git pull, or Ollama pull. I guess, yeah, it's a little like Docker and Git, the way the commands work. And this is going to go out and check, so I don't want to really actually do that. But that's the command I ran earlier today. And then 2 weeks ago, to validate what I was thinking here, I did just the latest without that tag on the back. But that's one thing I forgot to do here. We are going to go to the download page. And when you download, or is that's actually the next slide here, or the next section. So once it's downloaded, then you go find a model. And there's a lot of models here. And it's just like everything AI, everything's moving fast. If you think, oh, I have everything put together, 6 weeks later, you're going to change whatever you got going on. So I started out with this Llama 3.2. And you can click in here and see how they have there's different tags here. Like this one's a huge one with this 650 or 405 parameters. This one was 70 gig, I think. 43 gig, the newer one. So you have to start thinking about your computer, how big everything is. And this Ollama, this Llama 3B, this is what one we're running here. It's only 2 gig. So that's easy for me to run here on this machine. So then you just run Ollama, run the model you downloaded, and then you can say, because I'm interacting with it, it's all local. And what other questions would you like to ask a model? Is there, a lot of people say, why is the sky blue? And then it goes and rattles off the phenomena of Rayleigh scattering. So then after you download the model and you can interact with it like this, there is another cool thing you can do where we've showed it running it interactively. And there is a thing called Misty that understands exactly what you're doing. And you can go to Misty webpage here. Misty. STY app. That's it. So this is the place to go download this at. And it's very aware of what's going on. You download that and turn it on. And it knows. It had to ask that when I first downloaded it, I had to say, hey, I see that you have a tilde Ollama in your home directory. Do you want me to connect to that one you're connected to? And it knows that this is in here. And here I am with a typical user interface that you're used to, these working with these LLMs. And it's pretty cool. I have built a prompt to do something I use these things for all the time, just to build Docker containers and all the pieces that go with that. This is the slides. Oh. So I'm going to show you what I did. So I started out with on ChatGPT, and I said, can you generate a prompt for Llama 3.2? And I said, 2, write a hello world Flask app and run it in a Docker image. And I've added more details, but this is what I came up with as a good prompt to get something out of this thing. So that's, let's go and look what it did here. It's explaining what it did. Good. Look at even it tells you hey, you need to make a directory for this because you're going to do a Docker build, and that should all be in its own directory by itself. And here's the Flask app. Oh, and look at, oh no, that's right. I've seen before where the models use underscores instead of periods, but this is correct with the app.py. And the key is to listen, because it's going to be in a container. The key is to be listening to on port. This is a magic IP address with all the interfaces. It answers on all interfaces, and port 5000. And here's the Docker file. Notice it didn't put it in a container for me to copy out of. Do we have 3 minutes left? Let's see if this goes. not that's gonna go. It'll work to copy it over though. Everything from the from. And then the app. One thing I try to do in these smaller ones is to not have this requirements file, because usually it's just a file of 2 or 3 lines and I just use a pip install. So we might convert that, but it's going to be easier just to put Flask in a requirements file. And then so that prompt, it wasn't perfect because it didn't create the Docker file. And it's just to see how it hallucinated. Oh, yeah, in the terminal now, if you have any other package requirements, yep, it does tell you what to put in there. And then it has the build with the tag, that's right. Here, I'll copy that command exactly like that. Oop, not with all that stuff. Failed to solve error build. What the heck? Oh. Do I already have one of those? Nope. Well, how the heck is it not? Trash operation not permitted. So it's trying to delete one of the intermediate images. So this is a Mac thing. And something about the OS is not letting it delete file. You know, it should just remove it from the local directory. But what it wants to do is remove it to trash probably. And there's some permission issue. Nope. Well, you get the idea. Most people at the Docker meetup, they've all ran, or at the DevOps meetup, they've all ran Docker and built stuff and stuff. So, is there any questions or anything?
Do you play with other models that download, or what kind of things are out there in their
One of the things I was going to do for this talk was to take a Google Street View image of the building and ask what business is in that building, because there's that sign out here. And the vision model did not work. It said it was too blurry, or the characters were too small, and then it said that after I zoomed in, they said they were too blurry. So the zooming in, there must be too many pixels on the edges of the letters. So it's good at text, I guess. So that's the other model. Lava is that model. So vision model. Yeah, Lava. Yep, that's the one I downloaded, but you have to get your images just right to get sent to that. Any other questions?
What was the graphical application you were using to run the prompts?
That's called Misty. M-S-T-Y.
And is it difficult to configure running a different model in that?
Nope. When I had Lava on here, it knew that was here, and you just switch it to there. Add new models provider. I believe you can go and add. Yeah, look at you can add ChatTDP. You need a key for that. Now that's pretty slick to have this. I don't know about you, but it's pretty fancy for a free app without. There's no free versus paid service or anything. It works just like this, right? For the free model or free version. Is that good? All right.
Yeah, thanks everyone for coming. Thanks for all the 3 speakers, Min, Kyle, and Craig. Next month, our meeting is, I think it's April 26th. I just had it up here. Or no, April 23rd, the 4th Wednesday. And we have Kyle Haynes from Source Allies. He recently did a pretty large scale like migration with OpenSearch. And how do you achieve 0 downtime with that? So he's going to talk about that. But otherwise, feel free to grab some pizza if you want to take one home or whatever. Open to that. And then, yeah, feel free to stick around, network. Yeah, but thanks for coming. Oh, yeah, and then reminder about the survey. Feel free to just leave it out there, hand it to one of us. Yeah, thank you for filling it out.